Jacob, for how long have you been taking your nutrition seriously?
Uh, I would say that in 2021, at the beginning, I made a decision to really focus. I started picking up this bag right here.
Hmm.
I had this for I bought it like in 2017 or something, and or 18, I don't know. And I started using it in 2021 again. I was using it for a little bit, and I put it away in the closet. And I started using it again. So I'd say since 2021, I committed again, and then I got really serious into a bodybuilding diet, like where everything was very measured in June 2021, and then I kept that up for like a year and a half. And so then this year I went into like a postseason, off season. So really started structuring my diet into phases more in the last year. So I'd say it's been an ongoing thing for over 10 years, but over the
Hmm.
last 2 to 3, very consistent.
Hmm. What has influenced your decision to start dieting?
I'm just like most guys. They just want to be jacked, and you know, I'm not special in that regard. But that's like the facade, right? Or that's the external. You know, um, on the deep level, I'd say that seeing my dad that not really get his life together in nutrition, and seeing him have diabetes, and then slowly his health withered away in many ways, and then eventually he had complications and he passed away. So I think that as a teenager, seeing him struggle with these things, I think that and see that trajectory, I think that was a very good example of what not to do. And in some ways, and I've had really deep thoughts about this. Like, a person will. I think that in a way it was like, in some ways, ironically, a form of loving, because it showed me what not to do. So it was, and it hurts so much, right, to see that. So on the surface, yes, I am that guy that wants just to be jacked. I am a little bit shallow in that regard, just like anyone else. And then on the depths, I think that the wound that drives me is that. So there's the wound, and I think a lot of people, when they get into bodybuilding, or they get into fitness, there's typically a wound. I think I was telling a client, I think that the wound that we get in our teenage years, that wound, I think that sort of sets a trajectory of where we're going to end up or where we're going. So again, I know your question was sort of maybe not intended to be that deep, but I've given this a lot of thought. It's not something that I've sort of just, you know, oh, yeah. I think to really, I think here, to really, really, really take dieting serious and fitness serious, I think you really have to make some sort of connection with these really deep wounds and these really, really deep things that we can sometimes feel shame and embarrassment of, but those are also our fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of your question a little bit?
Yeah, that was awesome. So in that regard, how has your mentality changed from when you first started dieting?
I mean, my first diet, I just wanted to go low fat. I think I was just like, I was in high school, and I said, like, let me just go low fat. And that was my goal.
Hmm.
And looking back, that was a great decision, because now knowing what I know about dieting, if you want to, if you look at bodybuilding dieting, they're pretty low in fat. So it was a great decision. And then when I say that's how it evolved, there's been times where I did like ketogenic dieting, and that was high in fat, or like 70% fat. So, I've worked with all the spectrums. So I think that, I've done zone dieting, where it's pretty much 33% carbs, 33% fat, 33% protein. So I think that if you look at anyone that knows dieting, right? Like, you could say, okay, you have ketogenic dieting, you have zone dieting kind of in the middle, and then you have like a high carb diet, which is low fat, right? So low fat. So you have high fat, low fat, mid ranges, and then I think no diet, or like no structure, is pretty much eating whatever you want. Like, and just like, you really have no idea what you're doing. You're just sort of eating food because you like food. I think that would be like no structure. Like, but and again, only because I really thought about this, because it's my job, right? Everyone has a diet, right? And to say that there's absolutely no structure for most people is probably incorrect, because even when they're kids, you wake up and you eat, so there's some form of structure, and most people will typically gravitate to eating 2 or 3 meals a day, because that's sort of Americanized Western culture, and sort of there's some dietary soundness to that. So I think structure, even if it's like, well, I eat a Pop-Tart in the morning and I eat McDonald's in the afternoon, and then when I get home, I eat whatever my mom made. I'm just kind of talking about a random person I just made up in my head, some crazy avatar, right? I think if somebody watches this video, I think they would say, like, he's talking about me. Like, I think that that's, we all have structure. What I mean by no structure is that same person the next day might have a taco from Circle K, and they might have a steak at a steakhouse because we're invited by their mom, and it's like her mom's birthday or something, and then for dinner they might have pizza. That same person. In other words, what I mean by no structure is well, that's all over the place, right? And then they have some cereal. They wake up in the morning. And they wake up in the middle of the night and had some cereal. That's what I mean by there's almost no structure. But if you really honest with yourself, you could probably find structure in anyone's diet. If you have absolutely no structure, I think that's pretty wild. Like, that's very rare, that person. If you look at somebody that is significantly morbidly obese, maybe 400 pounds, 500 pounds, and they're bedridden, maybe there's no structure there. Maybe that's just consumption. If I like it, I eat it. Twinkies, Pepsi, big burgers, pizza. Is that too much information? Like, the evolution, I guess we all evolve then. That person that's having this no structure maybe started with just eating donuts in grade school. Then they progressed to buffets as an adult. And then the buffets led to just this progression. Mm-hmm. So I think my evolution was just consciously into the structures and the testing, and to where we're at today, where, this is my diet I was telling you right now for this year, which I'm very familiar with, but I still wrote it down because, if you start taking a diet, once you take a diet, like a serious religious or spiritual endeavor, like not joking about that, I think that that's where the magic is. So the evolution went from low fat to what you just heard. Mm-hmm. There you go.
So whenever you say structure, maybe could that fall into the lines of intention, mindfulness, like a goal, having a goal behind what you're eating? Or
ask the question again.
So whenever you're saying the word structure, could that also be like swapped out for mindfulness or intention? You're intentionally eating this
structure
way.
Specifically to me means the more variables that are part of a diet, those are the variables of structure. Mm-hmm. Structure number one starts with caloric intake. If you have a target of caloric intake based upon your body fat and your caloric expenditure, and the goal of that's variable one. If you have that, you're probably 80% to 70% to your target. You have to stick to that, of course, but that's most people. If you were to say, do you have a caloric target? Yes. This caloric target, where did you get it, and how did you get that? They might say, well, I just figured. Well, that's not really sound. Now, granted, the variable was achieved, and there is structure there, but say variable one would be caloric intake, and then after that would be, what are those calories composed of? There's only proteins, carbs, and fats in the diet. So if we have a caloric target, how much protein, carbs, and fat is that caloric target made of? Which is, you can say it's 30% protein. Let's say the zone diet, 33% carbs, 32%. So then that's two structured variables. And then you go into timing, and then you can also go into the quality of those nutrients, which is what we were talking about on the board here, which is it going to be ground beef? Is it going to be bison? So see, the more you fine tune it, those are the variables of structure. Now, if somebody heard that and goes, I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about, you could probably say that this person has no structure. Is that fair to say, right? For the sake of argument, I know we live in a very argumentative world where people will try to find holes in my positions because it's just natural for the internet to have those, like, the trolls, right? Mm-hmm. But do you get how it's scientifically a sound argument?
Yes, I see. And on that note, what is your main goal with this diet?
For me, it's to maintain the muscle I have. I got myself gaining 5 pounds of muscle this year, and I gained about 7 pounds of fat. If I could just only drop those 5 to 7 pounds, so it's a 4-week process. It's a 4-month process to drop 5 to 7 pounds, and not be tempted to drop them in a month. That's the other key. Is like, you're talking about evolution. Is like, don't be tempted to drop all of that in 6 weeks. It's like you give yourself the 3 months, the 4 months if needed to maintain the tissue.
Mm-hmm. And could you describe what one of your meals looks like?
Yeah, sure. Well, one of them, I'll give you the first one. I have one here of chicken breast, 7 ounces of chicken breast, 16 ounces of sweet potato. And on this one, I'm going to play with it a little bit, but I do have some avocado listed. I might just move that avocado towards the evening. That's one of the things I was looking at. And I'll likely just add some vegetables there, like some broccoli or something. So chicken breast, sweet potato, and vegetables.
Do you get tired of eating the same thing over and over?
I think on some level, yes and no. I think that there's a pleasure in monotony, or like if you look at a meditation, right? It says this, you say the same word over and over. It's a mantra. And I think that it's been said that boredom is the absence of awareness. Boredom is the absence of awareness. So if you say, I get bored eating the same thing, it's like, well, then it's not so much that, yes, potentially you need to change what's on the menu, and that's fine. That's a respectable position. But on the other side of the coin is, can you get deeper into the mundane? Can you get deeper into the monotony, right? Because they're both options, right? And so someone could say, well, yeah, but that sounds boring. It's like, again, have you ever done it? Have you ever gone deeper into the mundane? And I think that you look at meditation, someone can say, what's this? You're sitting still, you're breathing the same thing over and over again, you're breathing, just saying a mantra. But it's like, that's the whole like exercise of it, is to embrace that mundane aspect. And in embracing it, there's some level you access within yourself. Like lately I've been driving around without music and just listening to my own thoughts. And I find that my own thoughts are what I want. It's because as much as I love music, it's that my own thoughts, I feel I'm saying, while this music is produced and lots of money goes into producing them, my own thoughts hold more value to me. And so I hope that makes some sense. It seems if someone were to say that had nothing to do with your question, I think that they'd miss the boat. Mm-hmm. Because that is where the work comes into. Like, as someone say, help me get results, Jacob. I'd say you have to dig into something deeper, mm-hmm. always deeper, and it's sometimes embracing things that people consider boring.
So, what do you think some mental factors could be that hold other people back from starting their diet journey?
I think an everyday American, like they're gonna say I don't have time to diet, which is, I think that's a respectable position. I can't blame that person. And I don't want to give them an out. I just, who am I to say, yes, you do have time? Like, what if they don't? And again, that's where you have to really evaluate yourself and go deeper into your stories, right? But the time thing, not wanting to have structure, not wanting to give up like pizza. Like I was telling clients today, I was like, I have a frozen pizza in the fridge, and I was thinking about, I was throwing away some food that I need to get rid of. Like I had some frozen pineapples with chili on them, and some candy covered almonds or walnuts, and they're really good. And my brain's like, should you throw them away? Or, and it's like, again, I'm a trainer. I know about dieting. I'm going to take this serious. You hear me talk, and my brain is telling me, do you really want to get rid of this? And so I think that that's, if that can happen to a trainer that knows about dieting, and that's my career to get into this topic and goes deep into this study and the practice, I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that any average American just doesn't want to give up like the variety of, Pizza Hut or Whataburger or, beer with the friends just whenever. I think that is very fun, and it's difficult to give up fun in the name of like a vision. So something like that, time and variety.
Okay, and finally...
And also not knowing what structure, not knowing the correct diet that's also there. So go on.
And finally, what are some diet tips that you would give to someone who's looking into dieting or has already been dieting and maybe they get bored, like we talked about before, not just mentality-wise, but maybe introducing new flavors, or do you have any tips, hacks, anything you want to share?
Tips for dieting?
Yeah, like... different sauces you like, or just anything really.
You think about tips is, there's so many tips on the internet, and I sometimes get tired of hearing tips. So there's that part of me that's like, I don't want to give anyone tips. You know what I mean? I feel like when I'm saying like that, I feel like giving tips just now, like, but they're natural, right? Like, I'm going to eating vegetables as a tip. Like, I like to tell people like eat more vegetables. I like to give something to like eat 5 to 8 pounds of vegetables a week, right? Or 3 to 5, right? Say you're a female, you have a smaller gut, maybe 3 to 5. If you're a man, about 5 to 8. I think that tip is really good, because if you observe yourself when you're eating junk food, you're typically not eating vegetables. You know what I mean? So if you eat vegetables by default, you tend to eat healthier, and you tend to be more mindful. So I don't know. Do you have a tip that what's a tip that you'd like? Because
I do eat the same foods over and over, but how they taste to me, I like to change up with either like some sauces or introducing different vegetables, tweaking it slightly so that it's still enjoyable and it doesn't feel like so much of a chore.
Yeah. I like hot sauces. This is Cholula.
The goat.
Yeah, the goat. That's the goat to you?
Yes.
Cholula. Everybody likes Cholula?
Oh, yeah.
So hot sauces I agree with. Like, I think that when we were discussing how we got into this conversation is, when it comes to burning fat, if you look at most diets that are written by people that actually diet and burn fat, you'll find on that list potatoes, you'll find on that list oatmeal and rice, maybe some pasta, Ezekiel bread. You'll find stuff like that, like maybe some pineapple on there. But diet foods, the more that you look at diets, they tend to sort of, it doesn't matter which diet you're looking at, they tend to come up over and over and over again. And so in some ways, I would say the biggest tip is stop to an average individual, meaning not an average individual will talk to me and we'll get to like more in-depth talk, but to an average individual, I'd say stop looking for so many solutions and start applying the one you have. That would be the number one tip, right? Because I feel like the internet's so full of tips that it's like at some point we're like, dude, do you need another tip? Or it's like, do you need to just get going? Anyways, any closing ideas?
I think everything you said is raw. Maybe some people aren't ready to hear it, but...
Is it really, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it definitely delves deeper than just, I eat this for breakfast and this is what you should be having for lunch, Yeah,
and I'm saying, I think on some level, when I see influencers do that, or I always feel a little bit it has so much aesthetic to it. It looks good, but I'm into dieting, I'm into fitness, I'm into results, and I don't know, I don't want to eat like Greek yogurt, blueberries, and a little chia seeds in my smoothie. I don't know. It just seems so aesthetic. Like where if I say, look, I crave chili pineapples, I think an average individual is going to go, I totally get it. Right? I feel that, like Cholula, I totally get it. And I just feel like sometimes the TikTok frenzy is leading people into this concept of like, dieting has to look so pretty to work, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think pre-dieting works that well. Or this concept of, to me, I call it pretty dieting. Mm-hmm. You know, like, here's the tip, here's the bullet points, here's the words. They come out with my little pretty outfit, and then you just love the post and you share it with your friends, and it makes us all feel good. But it's like, okay, here's the question. Here's the question. What did you implement from that post? For real? For real. And I think that's where I don't like the aesthetic concept. And to me, I don't know. What do you think about the aesthetic concept? You know what I'm talking about?
I think it glamorizes someone else's lifestyle that may not fit yours.
Yeah.
So whenever you try that out and you see the real reality behind it, you're going to be left high and dry with some fantasy that was sold to you. That's not reality for most of the point.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have one video? Would you have a recipe that you have learned from some of these aesthetic? To me, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, as much as there's this one influencer. No, I'm just saying the vibe. It's almost like a vibe.
I mean, there's a lot of like green smoothie hacks, but I don't really follow those. I follow bodybuilding girls, and they have some interesting content.
Okay, go. Give me those. Those are more interesting to me.
Beef, rice, and banana. Maybe a little bit of honey in there. It really introduces a different flavor to beef and rice. You can do beef and rice.
Beef and rice, and so that's going to help. That to me would be more of a post-workout, because it's going to really help your glycogen uptake, right? Really help increase the pump. You know, is that what you felt it did?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel.
But how much honey?
Not too much, maybe a tablespoon.
A tablespoon? Mm-hmm. Which is a lot, you know, for people that are dieting. But if you're bulking, not.
Oh, yeah. Well, I am bulking.
You're bulking, so it definitely worked.
Yes.
Would you do that for dieting? For cutting?
I would definitely, I wouldn't introduce that much into
because the banana and the honey starts kind of messing with the blood sugars and stuff like that.
I definitely would. I like to strategize what I eat throughout the day, like you said, post-workout snack or a meal or whatever it is. I like to pick and choose my battles. If I want to have a bagel in the morning, then I know I gotta rearrange some things throughout the day. You know.
But you're bulking, like you said, so it's a different mindset.
Yes. So when I'm bulking,
a little sloppy bulk is like it almost, your body loves it almost to gain mass.
And it's still in some regards clean because it's not.
Yeah. No, that's what I was saying. Like, yes, I don't think people that diet well for cutting and they like cutting. You have to like cutting. I don't think people that like cutting and diet well are going to completely go off rails. Right? Like, I don't know. It seems the psychology is so different that even a little bit of going off the rails for someone that's into cutting, I think that's plenty for me. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you restrict yourself, the temptation just grows. And whenever you're finally able to get into temptation, then you don't learn moderation, or you forget about moderation, whatever it may be. You're giving yourself a chance to have something that you were so strict on and, like you said, go off the rails.
Cool. Well, thank you, Daniela. We'll be getting more into dieting this year. This is Jacob Adams.
And this is Daniela.
Peace.
Later.